down and pen another verse. It's how I seem to calm myself down, eternally conversing. There must be millions of us out there who struggle with their words. But when I'm stuck inside my headspace, I'm in a lonely universe. But music is my therapy.
Hello again, my friends, and you are my friends, and welcome to your Monday night pit stop. It is the F1 Fan Show live with me, producer the Gov. I am going to be joined by hopefully two. One is definitely here, one is not here currently, so I'm hoping it will be two, but it's certainly going to be one. And it's a fantastic one to be joined with because he has the memories and all the stories of the weekend coming that was Silverstone. I can see some of the chat lighting up. Love that. And don't forget, 8:15 tonight is our 8:15 tonight. 8:30 tonight is our Talking Town extra time. Who knows? Maybe some signings involved in that. Not them in the show. Us talking about them. You understand. Jacob Farrow, good evening. Good evening, Simon. Good evening, Matt, who's asking the question, is he still riding the waves of jealousy? Well, we'll grab Steve in a second. Don't forget, hit subscribe if you're new here. Every Monday night is an F1 pit stop. Don't get tongue-tied on that one, Martin. Good grief. So if you are an F1 aficionado like Stephen Thompson, this could be the platform for you. We hope to get some more stuff out with F1 theme among it. That's down to Steve and Neil. It's their sort of their baby, if you like. So if they want to do more, hopefully they do. Touch wood. We can get some bits and bobs out through the coming weeks and months to tide us over. And of course, you can listen to us back on all good audio platforms, wherever you find your podcast, the F1 Fan Show live. Right. Is he still riding the waves of jealousy, Matt? I don't know. Let's find out. Here he is. Stephen Thompson, welcome in, my man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm well. Yourself?
Very well, very well. Right, so let's kick it off straight away. Matt Stannard asked, are you, he's still riding the waves of jealousy. Are you still riding the waves of euphoria?
I am. It took a long time to come down, and I still haven't, to be honest. It was amazing. It was such a great weekend. My first ever visit to a Grand Prix. What a Grand Prix to go to. It was brilliant.
Absolutely, yeah. It had everything. And we'll get into that as we go. And just had a message from Mr. Positivity. He is here. He's not currently here, but he will be here. Now, we were discussing things off air. Before we go any further, I want to give your band a quick mention. They do the intro to the show, and we are ever so thankful for that.
Thank you.
But you're playing your first gig post-COVID and lockdown measures and all those sorts of things. Tell the good guys and girls at home where they can listen to that fantastic music.
Well, yeah, our first gig since February 2020. Also, it was just before everything got shut down for the first time. We are playing on the 7th of August at the B2 in Norwich on Sprowston Road. So if anyone can make it down, I think it's about £5 on the door, but there's 4 bands on, obviously including us, and it'll be great to see you there.
Absolutely. You've got yourselves, the Apollo Stands, Ocure, and Dying Sun.
That's it. So there's a good lineup. And I think we're shaking off that without ring rust now. So yeah, we're getting back into it.
Yeah, it's called a Midsummer Night's Scream. Link is in the chat. If you're around the venue, go check it out. I hope to sort of get up there. I see if Neil is free. Maybe we can pop up and do an F1 little boys reunion, have a few bevies, and listen to Steve's multi-named band, Neil, in the flesh.
There you go.
Sorry, Steve. It's all said from a good place. It really is.
I'm sure.
Matt Stanner hopes you can help him with the fantasy F1 team. He thinks even the medium mogul has overtaken him. That's like being overtaken in an F1 car by a cyclist.
Oh dear. Yeah, fair point. We'll see what we can do.
Adam was in the grandstand when Max crashed. Was scary as F. Still too early for me to say that word, but yeah.
That's typical because we were at Cops in Cop C, the sort of furthest around the corner on Friday and Saturday for practice and the quali or the sprint race, and we actually had inner track tickets for Sunday. So we went and sat at Abbey on the inside of turn 1 for the race. And we thought, it's fine because nothing has happened at Copse all weekend anyway. So what are the chances of it happening during the race? And of course, that was where the crash was. That's typical. But that was a hell of a crash.
It was, and we'll get into that. And that's the first thing I texted you, actually, wasn't it? Were you still there? And you're like, oh, no, I wasn't. I was like, oh, that's right in front of, obviously, where, as you just mentioned. What was before bringing Neil in, what was the best bit of the whole weekend? You were there all weekend. What was the best bit for you?
The best bit, I think it was where we were sitting on Sunday. The race obviously was the best bit because the atmosphere when Lewis won was insane. And when he was chasing down Charles Leclerc for the lead of the race, it was unbelievable. I've never been in a place like it. And it was all really memorable because they had the W Series there, which is the female-only open wheel racing, which is brilliant. Really enjoyed that. Formula 2 was there as well. So very much enjoyed that. It was brilliant. There was GT Masters as well. So you had a load of sort of 60s and 70s Mustangs, Corvettes, Jaguars, Porsches, all tearing around. And it was brilliant to see that the Mustangs and the Corvettes were having a bit of a tough time handling some of the corners. You saw them, sort of the Porsches and the Jaguars were handling it really well. And then a Corvette had come around the driver, wrestling away at the wheel, trying to keep it facing that way. But it was all amazing. I just enjoyed even just walking around the outer circuit in the baking sunshine.
Good atmosphere,
It was incredible. It was almost like pre-COVID, because there was a lot of people there, hardly a mask in sight, to be honest, and it felt good because it just felt like it was sort of normal again.
Yeah,
people just there to have some drinks, watch a race, have a great time, support their drivers, whoever they may be, and just enjoy the few days. It was fantastic. It really was.
Absolutely. Now you've provided 2 videos for us. Which one do you want me to play before I bring Neil in? You can choose.
The first one I sent you, that was the first lap of the sprint race, sitting at Copse, and that was amazing because you had 20 cars bundling around the same corner, and because they were all on soft tires, you had half an hour just to go for it. So it was literally just flat out for half hour. It was amazing.
Okay, here it is. Was that you saying, come on, Max?
I think that was me shouting, come on, Max, yeah. Because by that point, Max had got ahead. There was lots of that as well. But it was brilliant because you had obviously 3 British drivers. Hamilton to get the biggest year, Norris, and then George. And there were people ironically clapping Nikita Mazepin as well for the entire sprint race. Every time he went past, they're going, woo, just every time.
Love it. Right.
4 drivers.
Oh, go on.
4 drivers got a cheer. One of them was Mazepin. Strange.
But he didn't spin, so it's all good.
Almost.
Well, almost did not spin.
Wake up to the wow. Wake up to the money, turn me right on. You look like you got dressed with no lights on. I'm Superman that spin like a cyclone. Fit check, spin like a cyclone. Wake up to the money, turn me right on.
Yeah, but we're crap. We're not going to dominate any team.
Quite apt.
Not any longer.
But quite apt after a Mazepin comment. We're crap. We're not going to get round anyone. Neil, welcome in. I'm glad you could join us. Get in. You are in a Premier Inn. Am I right?
I am.
You are. I was all last week on my holidays, and every time I put the up lights on, I thought of you.
Good.
Every time. Little purple up lights, and I thought of you, Neil.
Nice.
Which one are you in today? Oh, I did. What, thinking of you or the up lights?
The uplights.
Certainly the up lights. Where are you this week?
Braintree.
Oh, you got a hotel to go to Braintree?
Yeah.
How far is that from where you live? How far is that from where you live?
It's about an hour and a half.
Hashtag Neil on tour. I see a t-shirt in the future there coming out. Hashtag Neil on tour.
All the dates on the back, all the venues.
I've got a trip up to Birmingham.
Have you?
Yeah, tomorrow. And that's actually from Braintree. It's 20 minutes quicker than it is from my house. So even though technically I feel my house is closer, but obviously the wind and the back roads takes longer.
It does, I suppose. Yeah. Can you see planes landing over from where you are?
No.
No? Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, just seen one of Steve's lovely clips from Silverstone. You are a fellow F1 fan. Have you done Silverstone yourself?
No, we've already mentioned I've only jogged it.
You only jogged it.
Done-
That's fine. I asked
Done my half marathons.
because this is your moment now as an F1 fan to really pick the aficionados' brains and glean the experiences of our resident brainiac with F1. What do you want to know from somebody that's now been and lived it and experienced it and submerged themselves in the Silverstone culture and atmosphere?
Well, basically, do you need earplugs still?
No, not quite. They had some demo cars, not demo cars, but some older cars going around. They had like Schumacher's '92 Benetton.
Yep.
There was a Williams from the early '80s or mid '80s, and Damon Hill's '96 Williams as well, being driven by Damon Hill, which was awesome. And they were so much louder than the cars now.
I got told when a V8 Red Bull went round in Melbourne that was, even though that's loud, it's not 24 of them. So you can imagine that the earplugs used to be needed.
The closest we got, well, there was a V8 going around because they had Lewis Hamilton's 2010 McLaren, which they were actually auctioning off. I think Sotheby's were doing an auction and it went for 4-point-something million. And we were sitting at COPs when it was going around. And I've got a couple of them just sitting out there, you know. And the noise it made when it went past was just phenomenal. And then afterwards, you had these cars sort of going around that sound a bit like a wasp in a can. But the V8s were incredible. And the previous cars from the 90s and early noughties going around were insanely loud. Even like the W Series cars and the Formula 2 cars were really loud. Amazing stuff.
I love the sound of the old cars, but I love the technology in the new ones.
If you could somehow combine the two, I think that'd be brilliant. If you could get the sound of like the old V10s with everything you've got now, you're onto a winner.
Shall we discuss the incident? And I'm quite keen to discuss it because obviously it can play a huge part in championship running. First of all, have you seen it via the use of a TV screen yet, Steve, or is your only look on this incident from being there?
I've seen lots of replays and I've watched it over and over again because it infuriated me. Where we were sitting, obviously we weren't at that corner anymore. We were at Abbey, and there was a screen straight opposite us. And from the angle it was showing, you saw Hamilton and Verstappen coming towards the camera. Because it was just on the outside of the track, it just looked like Verstappen spun. That's all it was. It didn't look like there was any contact at all. And then you saw his wheel or his tyre fly up, and you think, okay, there actually was a bit of contact, and he just banged into the barrier. And all the people that were cheering sort of stopped because they thought, okay, that's quite a heavy impact. We hope he's okay.
It was, yeah.
Because there's all these Lewis fans cheering because they thought Verstappen had just spun of his own mistake. And then it turns out it was a really heavy impact, like 51G, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Has your opinion changed on it since, as it's almost a week ago now? So.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm more of a Max fan than a Lewis fan, it's almost like I was always going to say, it was Lewis's fault. It was stupid of him. There's blame on both sides. I think slightly more on Lewis's because he was very wide coming into that corner. He was alongside for a split second and then Verstappen got back in front again. I think if Lewis had yielded, he could have got him either through Magus Beckett's or onto the hangar straight.
No.
I think because that Mercedes had speed.
Yeah, you saw in the sprint race that as soon as Max got that little edge, it's in the first 2 laps that he had to potentially be anywhere near him. After that, it's Max's race. And it's down to whether you could get an undercut or an overcut in the pit stops. Other than that, the race is Max.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's... For me, it wasn't as clear cut as that. Hamilton did drift off the apex, but Max had already pinched him. You think, but then I almost wondered, why did he have to dive up the inside? Max covered the inside so far, and Hamilton had so much speed on him to get alongside. Why didn't he just take the racing line and go around the outside?
I think it's
because
almost
then
like
it's the fact that Max would hit Lewis, and then Lewis could end up being in the barriers going, "Oh, you hit me off," because Lewis is fed up of yielding for him.
Mm.
Pretty
That's
much,
it, I
Lewis
mean-
has said now he's had to yield for him, and enough's enough. Max has to learn that not everyone's going to dive out of his way anymore. If he wants this championship, he has to drive properly.
The gloves are definitely off now with that, and it's basically that's it. Well, yeah, you basically said it. If Max had got past, and if Max had been allowed to put out that gap, it's also Lewis knew that if he didn't get past in this lap or the next lap, he's not got a chance, like you said, unless there was an undercut or an overcut. I think he could have still done it. I think Hamilton could well have still won that race had there not been that contact. But what's done is done, and so many different opinions. But there's so much stuff happened after that crash online with people, and just disgusting messages being sent to Lewis, which is just totally out of order.
I can see
100%.
why. The first image I ever saw of that, I thought, Lewis, what have you done? Because it just looks like he's just ploughed straight into him and wiped him out. But when you watch all the different angles and talk through all the different moments that have happened, and it's not quite as clear cut as that.
That's it. I mean, it's why it is a racing incident, because there's two drivers that have both been at fault there. It's the one good thing is it's blown that championship wide open again, and now the gloves are off. There's going to be no quarter from Red Bull or Mercedes, sort of apart from deliberately taking each other off. And
am I right in hearing that Red Bull have cooled off a little bit from their initial? Basically, what you're trying to do? Are you trying to kill him? You're an idiot.
I think they sort of realised that adrenaline was running high. You're going to be angry because your championship contender has gone, halfway through the first lap.
Perez is nowhere.
And Perez, they've not even got Perez to back him up, but to get. I think they scored no points apart from the 3 that Verstappen got for the sprint race. Red Bull didn't get anything because the only thing that Perez could do was take fastest lap away from Lewis, which he did. But he didn't get a point for it.
In our list, have we got talking over our thoughts on the sprint race?
Yes, I think we have. If we haven't,
Okay.
we certainly will. But do you think in that incident it happened primarily because both drivers knew the first lap, possibly the second, was where the race was won and lost? If Max can hold on or could have held on, he wins it. Max knows that, hence the aggressiveness maybe from him. Lewis knows if he doesn't take him, the race is over. So, because you saw a bit when he passed Charles Leclerc later on in the race, he gave him a bit more of a wide berth, if you like, because he kind of knew he could pass Charles Leclerc at any point. He was safe in that. Whereas that almost felt like that was it. Lewis knew this was the only time I've got. If I don't make a move, I ain't going to win the race either way. So I've got to make it. And it was two aggressive, really aggressive drivers. Do you think that's probably where it came from?
Max is usually aggressive anyway. I mean, he's really toned it down the past couple of seasons. He's matured and he's got a good head on his shoulders, but he does still occasionally get that. Lewis can be aggressive. It's not very often you see him having to be really aggressive. Mind you, his only competition really has been Bottas in the past couple of years.
He's desperate now.
He knows that he needs to really get back on top. But the thing that irritated me, if Verstappen had let him go or if they had passed him, he could easily hold on to second place because Perez was nowhere. Bottas was off the pace really again. He was never really up there. The closest competitors were him and the 2 McLarens. He'd have easily got second place, good chance for a fastest lap. He may have lost 6-7 points to Lewis, and he's lost 25. That could, someone said in the comments earlier that could cost him the championship.
But in equal measure, Neil, Lewis is also, he gets a fair bit of luck, doesn't he? Because after the collision with Max, he's got damage to his front wing. The red flag comes out. He can sort that out. He does get the sort of rubber to green, like in Imola.
There's more than that. His rim was broken, wasn't it?
But he gets the red flag, doesn't he? Which can help him.
Exactly. But that's not the way it always works, though, is it? On the other hand, they both could have ended up in the barrier. It's just how it happened at that moment. It did stink a little bit of desperation, if I'm honest. That collision wouldn't have happened if it wasn't a bit of a do or die here or now. It needs to be done, or pretty much I've lost this. But I agree a lot with Hamilton and the fact that Max can't expect everyone to jump out of his way.
No,
Particularly
It's happened just far too many times.
the incumbent champion. Tom, Red Bull are trying to get Lewis a bigger penalty. Jay
Yeah.
Crick, I know it's not their mindset, but Max needs to take finishing second and take the points. That could lose him the title. Daniel Barnard is a fast race corner. You to go hard, or if you don't, it's going to end in chaos behind them. Again, Daniel Lewis paid for what happened with the 10-second penalty stop. He still came out and smashed the race. I read some comments from Honda about the possible major implications of Verstappen's crash, and that is because of the power unit. It's their second running of the power unit, and could this cause further ripples in the sense of that if that's damaged to Max? Is that something to be worried about? Honda have come out and said that themselves.
It is something, along with the fact that all of this damage, because Red Bull have come out and said that because there's a cost cap now, and like with the Bottas and Russell accident, pretty much it can cost the teams major in repairing it or replacing it, shall we say. Along with that engine unit thing, they're limit. Is it 3 power units they've got for the season?
3 a year. Yeah.
They are,
So
yeah.
if that one's binned, they've got 2 to do the season, and each time you use it, there's more wear on it. You can't run the engine modes as high. The efficiencies on it are less, so you'll get less, speed down the straights. Pretty much in every way you lose out. That's why for say Monza, they'd bring out a brand new engine or one that's done less mileage.
You'll forgive me the pronunciation, but obviously Honda's F1 director, Steve, can you pronounce the name for me? Because I'm
not sure
going
of
to
his
make
name,
an
to be honest.
absolute pig. So Masaya Yamamoto, is that? I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with that. His comments were, I don't want to think about it, but if it happens, we'll have to race with the first unit or consider the third. If that happens, we are limited to 3 units per year, so it will have to be tough. Considering the championship battle, I'm worried. It's words there, obviously, from Honda, Steve. He's worried. As a fan, you've got to pray, haven't you?
Yeah, hopefully there'll be nothing seriously wrong and that power unit will be okay. When you saw the state of the car afterwards, I doubt it. Because 1.8 million in damage, which is just an insane amount, just for a split second. I hope it'll be okay. I can see him getting a grid penalty or 2 later on in the season, obviously for component changes. That usually happens up and down the grid anyway. Less so to the front runners, because they seem to be better at managing that sort of thing. But yeah, just fingers crossed that they can keep this up and this hasn't sort of swung the tide back into Mercedes' favour, because we've seen it in the past sometimes where a driver will be doing well on a high. There'll be one little thing and that will just be gone, and the momentum just shifts and they can't get it back. And I really hope it's not one of those moments.
Okay, yeah, agreed with that. Talking of momentum, let's now jump to the man that we were asking 14 days ago, will he ever get points? Mr. George Russell. Steve.
Oh, can you imagine being there if he'd scored points? Poor guy. He qualified. Where did he qualify? Is it 8th on Friday? The sprint race. Got a 3-place grid penalty in the sprint race because he caught Carlos Sainz, which I think was stupid, giving him a penalty, I think, because he had nowhere to go. He locked up and you've got 20 cars going through one corner. And yeah, he just it's his starts. He loses positions at the start, and that Williams is not good enough to get him back up the grid. He needs to at least maintain his position on the start to have any chance of scoring points. Because if he drops back 2 or 3 places, that's game over unless there's incidents ahead of him.
Yep, absolutely. So that's the fan perspective of it. The question I'm going to ask you though is a little bit different to that one, Steve. Who will be at Williams if he does keep this form up and does move on? Because he is in good form. It's not points, but he's maxing the heck out of the car. I mean, look at Latifi, and you think one's driving a go-kart and one's driving something completely different. So who's going to be there next year? I'll ask you the same question. Let's get ready.
Well, I mean, yeah, going back to that quickly, you've got Latifi at the back fighting with the likes of Haas. And George Russell's up there. George Russell's up there fighting with Alpine, AlphaTauri. Tail end of the points. So if George does go to Mercedes, Hulkenberg I've seen, passed around a lot on the old rumor list, and I would love that because he is one of my favourite drivers of recent times. Bottas as well would be a good choice for Williams because he knows what it's like now to be at a top team, to be fighting for a title. He knows, everything about that team now. So he'd have a good insight, and he's familiar with Williams. He started there years ago. And Alex Albon maybe as well. I'd like to see him.
Okay, interesting one.
I think I would put my vote on Hulkenberg and Albon.
Yeah,
the next year.
And that goes with what you've been very consistent with your Hulk love. Neil, yourself?
It's quite interesting, really. Of late, I've seen a few headlines, and you think, "Oh, this will be a good read," but then it turns out that it's just some bloke that wants to make a headline saying that Russell won't move there while Hamilton's still there. I can see his point that it's unlikely, but we'll see. It'd be nice for it. It'd be good, really, for Russell.
Do you think he
to make
moves?
the step.
Hand on heart, if you've been a fan for a long time, what are you getting? Do you think he moves?
I hope he does for his career. It's that'd be pretty awesome. Talking of moves, I saw one of these headlines talking about Gasly trying to replace Ricciardo at McLaren. Another non-story, but it'd be quite interesting.
Silly season's in full flow, isn't it?
Certainly is. Talking of which, get Mazepin in the Williams, then we can see what he can really do in a decent-ish car. Thoughts on that one?
If he ever moves to Williams, I'm no longer a Williams fan.
Matt Stannard, spin?
Yeah, spin at a faster speed.
We don't want that. It's not the Waltzers. It's not the Waltzers. Okay. Talking of British drivers, Lando Norris, another strong performance from Lando. Neil, how did you see it as the Lando Norris fan?
It was one of those where, Lando is awesome. But on a slight adjacent to that, where do Ferrari or Leclerc just suddenly get their speed from odd weekends? Because you think most of the time McLaren's the next best team, and then suddenly Ferrari come in where they could almost have won the race. You think, where is that all the time, and why can't McLaren be there? Because really, there's still more of the likes of Norris going, there you go, Lewis, come through because you're not really our race.
Yeah, I like both McLaren and Ferrari, to be honest, and this fight for third place is brilliant because Ricciardo seems to have really upped his game. He was fantastic in Silverstone. He was always there with Norris.
That's not a one-off.
I really do. Yeah, but Norris, I mean, the cheers he was getting going past were just amazing, and it was another fantastic performance from him.
I almost wonder a little bit with the incident that happened to him, and his talking about not being in the right frame of mind quite, and preparations weren't quite there, and whether the fact that Ricciardo was so close to him was because that Lando was off it a little bit. Could Lando have in how he has been this season, or am I just reading in something that's not there? And
well, possibly. I mean, for those that obviously don't know what happened, basically, he got mugged after the Euro game, and he got his watch stolen and everything, which must have a bad sort of psychological effect, and it's got to be tough to get into the mindset of getting back in a racing car. So it must have been horrible. So I can totally understand where he's coming from, but he still did, a typical what I think now is just a typical Lando Norris job. Just turn up in the car, get another strong position. It's only one race this season he's been out of the top 5, and I think he's the only guy to score points in every race. I think. I'm sure that's right.
He is, and I can't remember hasn't he done a record, because I guess McLaren have had failures and things and non-finishes, because he's had a consistent string of points.
He is now the record holder for the most consecutive points finishes for a McLaren driver.
Yep. Which,
the cars are a lot more reliable now than they were. But when you think that he's stepping into a team that had people like Jenson Button, Lewis Hamilton, Prost, Senna, that's a hell of a record. And he's still only such a young guy as well.
Wow. Wow.
Amazing.
Okay. Yeah. We've got Jacob Farrow. Lando's delayed pit time was heartbreaking as he was driving so well, Neil.
Mm.
Yes, yeah. As you were saying, these things just seem to happen to certain drivers. And there was one further down the grid, wasn't there? Was it someone like Science?
Science.
Yeah, they had one as well, and they were equally as frustrated.
Matt Stannard, it is awful, but going to football wearing your £45,000 watch? Question mark.
The
That was
thing
probably
is,
a
when you
sponsor
say "your," it's given to him.
Mhm.
I wish
That's
someone would give me a
a sponsor's
£45 watch. I really do. Before we go on to the last point of our show, is the Hungary preview. Looking ahead, let's look at our F1 fantasy. I'm not going to mention where I am because it's not looking rather good for me. However, I am ahead of the media mogul, so I'm not quite being passed by someone riding a bike. However, we have got Daniel Barnard in the chat, 26th on 1,441 points, so slightly ahead of me, Dan. I'm coming for you, though. I really am in the charts. I'm not that far behind you in the F1 Fantasy League. We've got Rob Davies, 21, to finish first. First, you must finish. Well, you're not finishing quite yet, son. Keep going. Where are you, Steve? Steve, 17th with 1,700 points. And Neil Moles keeping the three of us at least semi-decent, semi-proud. You're in 15th, Neil. With
As I say, if I'm not
175.
top 10, it's not worth talking about.
Well, no, none of us are top 10. I mean, Ben Moore is threatening the top 10. He's in 11th. And I'm trying to. Other than that, I don't know who these people are in the top 10.
I still haven't adjusted it or anything. It is as it was when I pretty much when I started. I think I made one change and that was it.
Absolutely. Well, I've not made many. Jay Crick says, you all know the Manscaped check is nothing mine to buy a £45,000 watch, but he's not that flash. If the Manscaped check was 45 grand, I would not be sat in this chair right now. I would be doing it from a beach somewhere with a margarita and looking at Neil's wonderful Premier in Wi-Fi.
Wow.
It started raining where Neil is. This is on the screen.
I guess that's into bloody hell. There we go.
Absolutely, I wish it was. But anyway, Hungary. Steve, kick us off. Hungary preview. Try and tie it in with the F1 fantasy in terms of drivers to watch out for, drivers to avoid.
Drivers to watch out for. Charles Leclerc. I've had him on my F1 fantasy all year. Same as Lando Norris. It's those two sort of standard ones now. You know they're always going to perform. Obviously, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton. If you've got the budget for that.
But Max, though, is that not a risky one this time until we know all about the power unit, until we know what they're facing, how they're going to be driving?
Hungary is not so much power dependent. It's a circuit Lewis has gone very well on. He's won it 8 times in the past. Insane. But it's a circuit that really could suit the Red Bull because it's quite tight and twisty. It's less dependent on power, which is probably, after Silverstone, probably right what they need. But yeah, Jay Crick said it there. Lewis, he is. It's one of those circuits where he just, any car, he won there, I think, the 2009 McLaren, and that was an awful, awful car. And he got a win in it. But yeah, other drivers to watch out for, Daniel Ricciardo. I think if he can keep up his performance from Silverstone, he could be a good little outside bet. So,
okay, Neil, welcome back. We're looking at drivers to maybe get hold of or avoid in our F1 fantasy for Hungary.
Well, on avoid, I imagine Tsunoda's going to continue to disappoint me. So he'll be my avoid.
What is going on there? Because he started brightly. So brightly, I put him in my F1 team, and then since then he's just disappeared.
He has. He's still lost at Imola.
He is, and with it, my F1 fantasy hopes. But yeah, definitely, if you could avoid Tsunoda, avoid him.
Potentially, Alonso's doing quite well of late, so maybe he's going to push on, and with his experience,
he's another driver that goes quite well at Hungary.
Lewis. So Lewis is obviously the favourite. Is he the favourite for you, Neil, for Hungary, based on his record there and recent win at Silverstone? Is he now?
I'm not sure you can really go on any recent record for who's favourite, because has he really had anyone to challenge him? I think you almost have to look back at what the teams used to be good at. And I think Hungary is, even though it's quite a quick track, you need good stability and downforce. And that's what Red Bull's good at. So I think it'll be tighter than just it's Lewis's race to lose.
Okay. All right. So who, if you had to say between a 1 to 3 lineup predicted, what would your 1 to 3 lineup be as we close the show?
Max, Lewis, and
Lando.
Bottas, probably.
Bottas. Okay. Not a Lando top 3 finish. Not ready for that yet.
I'd love it. That'd be awesome. But it just depends if Ferrari's going to do one of their random turn-ups again, whether they're going to be knocking on the door, trying to get that second place. But I hope not for me and McLaren.
Okay, it's good that we're talking about Ferrari occasionally turning up. I know last year they didn't turn up barely at all. So nice to mention the Italian supergiant. Steve, your 1 to 3.
Max, Sergio, Lewis.
Okay,
you think Sergio is going to?
I think Checo's going to turn up for Hungary. I think he needs to, especially after Silverstone. That was awful. Red Bull favoured track. And I think because again, historically he's gone quite well at Hungary as well. He's got the car, so yeah, I'm going to go for Red Bull 1-2. George in 10th as well. George in 10th. That 1 point.
15th.
Suddenly, Sergio seems more of a realistic option now. You've said that.
Well, yeah, I've got my Mr. Saturday logic hat on because if he performs well on Saturday, he gets that car into a good position. If he can nail his bloody start, Hungary's quite tricky to overtake on. So all he's got to do is make that car as wide as possible, and he could hopefully
have an awful pit stop.
Yeah, something will ruin it for George because everything does when he's in a good position.
Okay, right, we're back at 8:30. We're talking town extra time, some town stuff, and maybe possible signings to discuss. Who knows? Last comment coming in from Matt says, "Yes, Steve." Now, Steve, I've got one last video from yourself to play from your weekend at Silverstone. Introduce it for the guys and girls at home, and that'll be our lead out.
Yeah, thank you for watching. Last video is the parade lap on race day. So sitting at the inside of turn 1, it's got the pit lane behind you, and I just caught all the cars coming around for the parade lap. So
see you next week.
Go, Max!